Welcome to this week's Q&A and this week's topic about how do we take care of challenging things in our life. Because let's face it, life brings challenges with it. That's how we grow, that's how we evolve. If we never had challenges, we would stay the same throughout our entire life. And as a new friend that I just met today, if you don't experience challenges, you're either dead or you're a monk sitting on top of a mountain meditating all the time. And that's neither you nor me, right? So what I wanted to share today was what I do when things are challenging. And I wanted to share that for the past few weeks, life has been challenging because I've had infections that have made me not have the energy that I want to have. And it has brought up these fears of like, what if I can't do that thing that I have planned? For example, I went on a trip with my son to London last week, and it brought up fear of like, what if I can't go? What if I have to cancel everything? Will all the money be lost? And all kinds of thoughts like that. So what do we do? What do I do when that happens? So the first part is recognizing what thoughts are playing in my head. What am I telling myself about this situation? And for instance, when I had that thought, what if I can't go? I recognized that as an old fear. And I told myself, yeah, but you don't know. You don't know if you can or if you can't go, right? And what can I do about it right now? Nothing. I can't do anything about if I'm going to be healthy or not enough to be able to go on the trip. So that's another part of it. What we find challenging, recognizing if we can change it or if we can't change it. And if we can't change it, the one thing that we can change is our experience, how we perceive it and what we do with that experience. So let's say again, I was feeling that fear. And I've talked about this before, about what we do when we experience challenging emotions. There's that tendency to want to push it away because we live in a society that teaches us that there are good and there are bad emotions. That, for instance, happiness is great. We should be happy all the time. Meaning that if we're not happy, if we're angry, afraid, agitated, feeling shame, that's bad. And so what happens then is that not only is it uncomfortable, we have the conditioning that we want to push it down, which makes it even harder. Because, as I talked about earlier as well, emotions, feelings, they're just energy. Emotions are energy in motion. And if we try to push them down, they're going to get stuck. And they're going to be stuck in our body. And they're going to eventually cause all kinds of different things. They can cause physical symptoms. They can cause mental symptoms if we don't release them. So when I felt that fear, one tool that I've shared before, and that is my go-to tool, my number one go-to tool, is noticing where in my body do I feel the fear. So if I connect to that fear now, I could feel it as this tightness in my heart and also a tightness in the belly. And so what I do then is notice that tightness and just pay attention to it. And as I pay attention to it, I notice that it starts changing. Because that is one thing that is certain. when we focus on our sensations in the body, we will notice that they are never constant. They constantly change. They shift. And so as I pay attention to that fear, as I acknowledge it, I noticed that it starts to dissipate. And what I notice after that is that, oh, I don't feel that fear as intensely. Now, this is one very specific challenge. So there is no one solution to all challenges in life. And when I have challenges in my life that I notice that I can't take care of by myself, I can't sit and notice where in my body am I feeling it. It's too big, it's too overwhelming. I take it with me to my coach and I work on it together with my coach, together with someone that can hold the space for me and support me in that process. Because we're not meant to take care of all of this by ourselves. I believe that just like the trauma expert Bessel van der Kolk says, trauma is being alone with too much, and healing trauma is being together with just enough. And it's the together piece that it's important, because we heal together. We can do some work by ourselves, but it's when we sit with another human being that we can do really deep healing. And there is so much to be said about what happens in that relationship, in that situation when you're together with another human being, what it is that brings on the healing that I might talk about on another Q&A, because it's too big for today. Another thing I wanted to say about this is also that I've had the idea that if I do enough healing work on myself, life won't be challenging anymore. I won't be triggered by things. Everything will be perfect. I will feel happy all the time. I will have everything that I want in my life, and everything is going to be exactly the way I want it to be. Well, that's not going to happen, right? Because I am not going to be some enlightened guru before I die. Or not that I know of. I don't think. The chances are very slim that I will be that. And even an enlightened guru has challenges in their lives. So there's that piece in finding acceptance that challenges are part of life. And like I said in the beginning, if we didn't have challenges, we wouldn't evolve. We would stay the same all the time. Nothing in our life would change. And I know I used to think about that being very comforting. I remember I said to a colleague many years ago that I wanted to be that person that did the same thing all the time, had the same job, went to vacation in the same place all the time, did the same thing every Friday. I used to think that, oh my God, that sounds so great. For everything to just be calm, everything, everything's predictable. But to me, that's boring, very boring. It would drive me crazy after a while. Because I believe that we are made to evolve. That is part of our physical nature. That is part of us as humans. There is a reason why we are part of evolution. Evolution occurs throughout the whole of humanity, throughout the whole of the world, throughout the whole of the universe, and it also occurs in ourselves. Because the opposite of that is becoming stagnant. And what happens when we become stagnant? Well, imagine a puddle of water out in nature that is stagnant, that has been sitting there, and there has been no fresh water coming into it. after a while it starts to rot. It starts to smell bad. And that's what happens in ourselves as well. When we become stagnant, it starts to become putrid. And that can look like anxiety. That can look like losing joy. That can look like depression. That can look like disharmony in our connections with other human beings. So I am going to leave you today with a question. What if the challenges that you are experiencing in your life are actually gifts? What if the things that you find challenging in your life are gifts? So I would love to hear about any challenges in your life that you have noticed that are actually gifts. Let me know in the comments below or send me a DM. And on that note, I think I'm going to share with you how having had chronic fatigue is probably one of the greatest gifts in my life. And yes, it was freaking challenging. Really, really challenging. But it has brought with it so many gifts. It has brought with it an awakening in myself, a knowing of who I am on such a deeper level that I would never have wanted to be without. So I feel like I want to finish with 3 deep breaths. So I invite you to join me if that feels good for you. And I like putting one hand over my heart and one over my belly and closing my eyes. And I invite you to check in with yourself and join me if that feels good to you, or not, if that feels better. So we start by breathing in deeply through the nose, down into the belly, and breathing out with a sigh with an open mouth. Breathing in through the nose and out. And the last time, breathing deeply into the belly through the nose and sighing out. Noticing what that feels like in your body as you sigh out that long breath, releasing. And just sit with that for a moment, noticing what that feels like. And then coming back, and if you have your eyes closed, I invite you to open them again. And sending you so much love, and I will see you next week.